Hey guys, Paul here, back with part two of the DC dog crap training, cycling for pennies, recap, rehash, whatever the fuck you want to call it. This is from the Q&A section that was up on, I believe, the Intense Muscle forum. I picked a few of the questions out that I thought were pertinent, that Dante actually answered himself. These are old, so crap, a lot of this stuff's 16, 17, 18 years old, something like that. So keep in mind that stuff has changed. I'll comment on it. It's no, please, don't take it as a slight towards Dante. I hold him in the highest regard. I think he's one of the most honorable and knowledgeable people in this industry. So, and I'm sure his opinions have changed on this stuff. I haven't really talked to him in a long time, but anyway, before we get into it, please take the time to like my video, of course, if you like it. And I would appreciate it if you subscribe to my channel. The YouTube gods like it when you subscribe. They put me higher up in the algorithm, in the listing. The algorithm likes it when you subscribe. So I get a lot of people watching videos, not a lot of people subscribing. And if you want to get in contact with me or follow me personally, you can do so on Instagram at Paul K. Barnett. Okay, so let's dig into this. First question on here. What about destroying your natural testosterone production by blasting and cruising? This guy's talking about shutting down your HTPA from just staying on gear constantly. This was Dante's response at the time. Do I believe Clomid and Arimidex will work better at getting your endogenous test back to normal without any exogenous testosterone in the system? Yes. Do I believe there is 300 milligrams of exogenous test in the system that Clomid and Arimidex will do nothing to regulate endogenous tests? Absolutely not. And I know better from people I train myself. We're trying to reach a middle ground here. If you go off completely, you will start losing muscle rapidly. If you don't do the Clomid or Arimidex during the cruising period, your HTPA will become more and more impaired over time. I'm trying to keep someone normal, hormonally wise as possible while he is on cycle, so he can finally get off cycle, that he'll have muscle that stays. 300 milligrams a week of testosterone is slightly above the replacement dose for an HIV patient or a test replacement therapy. That's usually in the 150 to 200 milligrams per week range. So I believe that Clomid or Arimidex will do a great job to get your natural test working again. In fact, I think it is imperative. If you find yourself getting sick during cycles or directly after, or losing muscle rapidly after you get off, I'm sure my way will rectify that. I hate seeing someone go 12 to 16 weeks on cycle with awesome gains and then get off and pow! They spend weeks fighting a cold, they feel crappy and lethargic, they have no appetite, and then it takes 45 days to feel normal again, even with Clomid and HCG. After all that, then he steps on the scale and the 27 pounds of body weight he just gained turned into 8 pounds, sometimes even less. That's a waste of time to me. The guy who waited too long to regulate himself, the body can't snap back that quickly. He would have to fix the whole problem by doing it my way. So my thoughts on this. No one uses Clomid anymore. Clomid, I really hate Clomid. It's an estrogen bomb. I think that it exacerbated my gyno. Today, what I see a lot of guys doing to help, if you're concerned about being able to have kids later on, that's a big assumption, is they'll use HCG on and off and maybe tamoxifen to help with the fertility. I don't know, specific studies on this stuff, but my thoughts and feelings on this is if you're blasting a gram of test a week or 2 grams of gear, I don't think it matters what the fuck you take. HCG, whatever, that you're going to be shut down regardless. You're just swimming upstream and probably taking more drugs and wasting time. I know of guys that have been on for years, gotten off, done some HCG, knocked their girlfriend or their wife up. I'm one of them. I don't know. I mean, if you're concerned about it, maintaining your natural testosterone production, I would not. I just wouldn't do steroids. That's the easiest answer. And you certainly could throw some HCG in. I don't think it's going to hurt anything. Although, I don't know, HCG kind of makes me feel like shit, but, that's your call. I don't personally use it. At this point, I've just come to the conclusion that I'm going to be on hormone therapy for the rest of my life. It's just the way it is. I will say that most pros these days are blasting and cruising. They just never come off. They accept that that's just part of the gig. Not that I'm suggesting that for you, but that's what I see. But if you are concerned, I would use as low doses as possible. When you come down to the cruise, throw some HCG in. So I wouldn't fuck with the Clomid. It's just, I don't know. I think it's garbage, but that's my 2 cents. Next question. Let's go on here. Let's see what we got. How do you gain 145 pounds in 10 years with bad genetics and not suffer anything structurally? I assume the 145 pounds is lean body mass. Otherwise, you must be one fat bastard. If your genetics are truly bad, that's quite a load to place on your skeletal system, which is probably designed for 150-pound body weights. How tall are you? Any back or knee injuries in that 10-year time frame? Your 4 weeks on, 2 weeks off cruising system is interesting. Dante's response. No, I'm actually pretty lean. I can see my intercostals any day of the year. The rib cage area, the scapula area, and the shoulder region are all very pliable at a younger age with the ability to stretch and adapt, in my opinion. Hence, you see high school football players breaking collarbones and ribs a lot. I'm 6 foot tall. My structure is completely changed since I started lifting. My frame somehow adapted to carry the weight. You can see with someone who maybe was 200-pound high school football player who then went on to be a 300-pound lineman later on in the pros or college. If he diets down after your playing days are over, his skeletal structure will never go back down to the previous 200-pound structure. That is true. They still have that big frame. It was so much larger. I started lifting at 19, as thin as a rail. My skeletal and shoulder structure is much wider now than it was then. I breathe normally. I'm very agile. My blood pressure is actually lower than normal. Everything has adapted. I take a great deal of time stretching every muscle group, holding in a painful weighted stretch for 30 to 60 seconds after each body part is trained. I've never had a major injury gym related, and I believe directly because of this extreme stretching. That's a Dante Trudel thing, the extreme stretching. We'll touch on that at some point. I've had training partners who wouldn't stretch, and all of them have been injured at one time or another. My stretching is almost like another workout for me. I go into agonizing stretch with heavy dumbbells and then push that stretch painfully until my eyes are watering for 60 seconds. My stretching regimen is easily the most excruciating thing I do, or most bodybuilders I train tell me. I truly believe it has added dramatic size and roundness due to the fascia stretching, especially in my arms, triceps, and quads. I used to do the extreme stretching quite frequently. I don't know how much it helps with the injury stuff, but I will say this. I have never had a major injury in the gym. All my injuries came outside of the gym, playing basketball, riding motorcycles, doing stupid shit like that. I've had both of my ACLs replaced. I think no amount of stretching would have saved me from that. That's just from years of wear and tear from playing basketball. There's been mixed feelings on the extreme stretching over the years. I do think if you have better mobility as you age, certainly being more mobile and being able to move is important as you age. I probably should be stretching, but so long story short, I do think the extreme stretching helps. I don't know how much it helps with growth. I've seen a lot of huge dudes that don't stretch. Now, whether or not they get injured or not, I don't know. But there's some really massive guys out there that don't stretch. Next question. What is the logic behind your training and how does it work? Okay, first I have to go over Dante's response. Okay, first I have to go over some principles I believe in first regarding the training. And I'll go to work and hit more on the training later. I believe he who makes the greatest strength gains in a controlled fashion makes the greatest muscle gains. Please note that I said strength gains. Everyone knows that someone naturally strong who can bench 400 yet isn't big, going from benching 375 to 400 isn't that great of a strength gain and won't result much of a muscle gain. However, if I show you someone who went from 150 to 400 on a bench press, that guy will have 2.5 inches more thickness on his pecs. That is an incredible strength gain and will equal out into an incredible muscle size gain. I haven't seen a guy who can squat 500 for 20 reps, bench 500 for 15, and deadlift 500 for 15 who was small yet. But I have seen a lot, and I mean a lot of people in the gym and on the forums that are $165 and change shouting that you don't have to lift heavy to get big. In extremely rare cases, you'll see some naturally long powerlifter who has to curb the calories to stay in a weight class, and that is the reason he doesn't get bigger. Training is all about adaptation in simple terms. You lift the weight and your muscle has one of two choices: either tear completely under the load, which is incredibly rare, and something we don't want, or the muscle lifts the weight and protects itself by remodeling it to get bigger and protect itself against the load the next time. If the weight gets heavier, the muscle has to gain, remodel, and get bigger and handle it. You could superset, super slow, giant set, pre-exhaust all day long, but the infinite adaptation is to load. This means the heavier the weights is the only infinite thing you can do in your training. Intensity is finite. I don't give a fuck if you're 150 pound guru. Volume is finite or infinite. If you don't do 9,000 sets per body part, everything else is finite. Load is infinite, and heavier weights are used. Will make the biggest bodybuilder possible. Add in high protein glutamine drugs to the mix, and you'll have the recipe for one large person. Largest pro bodybuilders in the last 10 years are also the strongest. Paul Dillett is an exception. I'm going to stop here for a second. I don't know if you young guys would remember Paul Dillett. You might want to Google him, but he was this freak of nature back in the 90s. He was known for lifting really light weights and just got huge. All right, so let's see where I left off. Paul Dillett is an exception. He is a genetic alien and can grow off mowing lawns. Greg Kovacs, God rest his soul. Tom Prince, Ronnie Coleman, Yates, Francois Nasser, also God rest his soul, another one that's passed, all trained heavy. For anyone who argues that they have seen a bodybuilder and he trains light, well, I bet you that he isn't gaining rapid size anymore. And the greatest sizes increases where he was going for his pro card and training fucking heavy. He will continue to convince himself and others that he's making the best gains of his career. No one likes to think that what they are presently doing isn't working and they're running in place. Sadly, heavy drug use can make up for some training fallacies. Please think of all the times when you made the best size gains. The first time in the first 2 years of lifting when you were making the best strength gains, that is true. Then things start to slow down. What's the next time? When you start using steroids, and boom, what happens? Your weights go up and you get dramatically bigger. The greatest strength gains you make will result in the most rapid size gains. If you're taking protein requirements of a 12-year-old Girl Scout, then you can discount yourself from the above group. I believe in power building, not bodybuilding, using techniques that build the most strength gains in the fastest time possible while using the most effective exercises for that person. I'm positive I could take twins and have one do his own thing training-wise, but do some drugs and nutrition as the twin I train. Same drugs and nutrition as the twin I train. Come back a year later and the twin I train will have 25 pounds more muscle. I've seen powerlifters who can catch a lot of gruff from bodybuilders for being fat, die down, and come in and destroy the bodybuilders in bodybuilding shows time and time again. Powerlifters and bodybuilders are by far the thickest guys on stage, and if they decide to enter bodybuilding shows. Heavy is relative. It doesn't mean 3 reps. It means heavy, as you could go on exercise, no matter if that is 5 reps or 50 reps. I personally like to do hack squats for 20 reps, but then I use 6 plates on each side and go rock bottom. That's as heavy as I can go with that exercise, so 20 reps. I could also do sets of 6 using 8 or 9 plates a side, but legs grow best from the 15 to 20 rep sets. I've stated how to continually get stronger as one on key exercises will continually get bigger. I will say this, the method I'm about to describe is what I have found makes the most people grow at the absolute fastest rate possible, and why I'm being inundated down in this area to train people. I'm going to go against the grain, but I'm going to be making a few people grow about 2.5 times as fast as normal rate. So bear with me. A typical workout for the masses is doing one body part once per week, and sometimes even once per every 9 days or more. This concept came to the front due to recovery reasoning. And I agree with most typical workouts, you're going to need a great deal of recovery. Here's the problem. Let's say you train chest once a week for a year and hypothetically gain 1/64th of an inch of pectoral thickness from each workout. At the end of the year, you should be about 52/64 or 13/16, almost an inch of thickness. That's pretty good. To build muscle, we are trying to lift with high enough intensity and load to grow the muscle, but enough recovery so the muscle remodels and grows. The problem is that everyone is loading up on the volume end of training, and it's taking away from the recovery part. You can train in a way so you can't train chest 3 times in every 9 days, and you'll recover and grow faster than ever. If you train chest 3 times in 9 days, you're now doing chest roughly 136 times a year instead of 52. That's a good point. You're now getting 136 growth phases a year. I would personally rather grow 136 times a year than 52. A hypothetical 1/64th of an inch per year per workout, you're now at 136/64, roughly 2.1 inches of thickness. So now you're growing at roughly 2.5 times as fast as possible as normal people who are doing modern day workouts. All right, so there's a lot to unpack here. When he's talking about modern day workouts, he is talking about the bro split. The bro split is still super popular. It's been around forever, chest on Monday, back on Tuesday, whatever. Each body part has its own day. You know what I'm talking about. And the issue with that, as he pointed out, is you only assume that you train all 52 weeks a year. You only have 52 opportunities for adaptation and growth. With Dante's program, it's a high frequency program, so you're getting in body parts more frequently than you would in a bro split, as he mentioned, 3 times in 2 weeks. So there's more growth opportunities. That has proven to be true. There's been a lot of recent scientific studies on what are the primary drivers of hypertrophy. Another thing he talks about here, and essentially the thing with adding weight and yada yada, that's progressive overload. Progressive overload still seems to hold true as well. You get stronger, you get bigger, you add more volume, you get bigger. But I think progressive overload is a bit oversimplified here. There are multiple factors in overload that can stimulate muscle growth. They're intensifiers you can add. Things like, Dante does them, rest pauses, drop sets, volume, weight, form, also diet, eating more food. You progressively eat more food and get your body to adapt to metabolize food more efficiently. You're going to get bigger. So there are multiple factors in here. I will say this, that recent studies have borne out that volume is actually the primary driver of hypertrophy. So volume and frequency are the primary drivers of hypertrophy. So training with more volume more frequently is going to get you bigger. And I will say this, I've seen, he talks about the strong dudes. I've seen a lot of powerlifters that aren't that big, at least at my gym. There's some dudes that are pulling 7 plates. I'm way bigger than they are, and I'm not pulling 7 plates. So I think it's a bit more complex than that, but the underlying principles here I think are sound. High frequency, progressive overload, I mean, you do want to, if you're doing the same thing over and over and over again, you're eventually, your body has no reason to adapt. So there are things you have to do to force adaptation, and progressively adding more volume. And there is a limit on how much volume you can do, and adding more weight will lead to more growth. I do agree with that. So 100% sure that, you know, somebody who can bench press 400 pounds is going to be, 4 reps, is going to be bigger than the dude that's, you know, doing 135 for reps. But there are other factors that go into growth, you know, neuromuscular, neurological recruitment, being able to activate the muscle, technique, leverage. I mean, there's all these, you know, I'm sorry to say it, but a fat guy, a guy that's got 30% body fat, has got more cushion for leverage than, you know, a dude at 5%. You know, I've been lean, I've been bigger, and I'm stronger when I'm fatter. It's just the way it is. I didn't gain more muscle, I just got fatter, and I have better leverage because I'm holding more water and more fat. So yeah, I mean, we'll dig into another video. We'll dig into more about the training methods and, you know, how to apply them. But I do think his program's a good way to start off. You really should establish a base for strength. But I also think there's only so far you can take strength. You know, I mean, once you hit, you'll see it with guys at the pro level. They get bigger. A lot of times they don't get bigger because of, you know, they're already at their maximum level of strength. They add more volume, they add intensifiers, they improve with diet, they have more drugs. There's a multitude of factors that will make you bigger. Anyway, I think that's a pretty good place to stop here. I'll do a part 3 with the Q&A. Anyway, have a great day, guys.